Hi, my name's Jonathan Hicks. I'm back at the Dice Cup, and this evening I'm joined by
Mark.
And we just finished playing Intrepid, which is a cooperative game about rolling dice and manipulating them to gain resources on board. I don't know if you can see if I zoom out here. This is the International Space Station. It's like the background artwork on this main board in the middle here. You have 4 key resources in the game, so nutrition, oxygen, Mark, you had power, didn't you? And climate, so generating enough heat to keep you all alive. And typically one player controls one of these sort of resource boards and is trying to make sure they get enough, in this case, food for us to eat. But the way you actually play the game is you start off by rolling some dice. So you have a certain number of dice at the start, and you roll them, and then you're trying to place these. Incidentally, this ISS symbol is a 1 whenever you see it on the dice. I'm trying to place these dice on tiles. Now, at the beginning of the game, you don't have very many of these, but you can see later in the game we've got quite a lot of these tiles placed on the board. And I'm trying to place certain numbers. So, for instance, if I can place something between a 2 and a 4 on here, so have I got between 2 and 4? I've got a 2. So I'll place that one on here. That is going to give me 6 nutrition and 6 oxygen. Okay, so this board goes up, and the oxygen board goes up as well, because we're going to need both of those things. So that's very helpful. And also, it lets me roll a new die into my pool. So from the supply of dice, I get to roll a new dice, and I've got a 4. Okay, so then I look at what else I've got, and I look at my other tiles and see if I can play stuff. Now, at the same time, Mark is doing the same thing with his dice, and he has his own set of tiles. So just to give you something else, I could put a 1 on here, for example, because the 1's a bit rubbish. And it lets me re-roll another of my dice that's 3 or less. So I want to try and get something higher than a 2. So that would get me, it's a 5, that's good. Now some of the tiles, like this one up here, the number on the die matters. So if I put a 6 here, I'm getting whatever the number on the die is, a 6 plus another 5, so I'll be getting 11 oxygen for that one, which in fact makes this a very bad decision because this would only give me 1 nutrition, so I messed up there. But you kind of get the idea, they each work differently. Now everyone has their own kind of faction. In this case I was Russia, and they have certain special abilities. So my tiles, the Russia tiles, you kind of get a stack of these in a nice little game tray style inserts. They do certain things. So my tiles typically let me re-roll the dice. Now, we were playing with another player here who was playing Canada. Canada gets a lot more dice than everyone else, but has a hard time manipulating them. I can manipulate my dice much more easily. But a lot of his dice, when he rolls them, gets locked, so they're kind of unusable. And his tiles, when he puts the dice on them, sort of unlocks the dice gradually and lets him mess with them. Now, Mark was playing Japan, was it?
Yeah, it's Japan.
And Japan is the most complicated of all the ones that we've played with, which essentially, as you place in the dice, you get to sort of flip them one way or the other way, don't you?
So essentially on this, for instance, if I go where so that'd be a 1 on there, so 1 to 6. So to gain a die, so it'd be the same die, but then tilted left. So I'd have to make sure matching the face, in that case it'd be that way, so tilt left. I've now got a new dice, but it's a 4.
Okay, so again, yeah, so these are making the dice flip so much, so you have to kind of realise, well, this will flip it this way, which gives me this number, which I can use on this tile that lets me flip it this way, and it carries on like that. Now, why are you trying to generate all these resources? Essentially, you're trying to complete missions. So as you go through the game, there are 3 missions you're trying to complete. Our final mission that we were trying to do was to fire up the welding torch. And essentially, you have to put a dice on here, 1 has to go on here, and then gradually over the next few rounds, you're going to be losing, in this case, climate. So it drains successively more and more climate. After 4 rounds, it's going to be draining 10 climate each round. So although I have tiles, or the other player I think was producing tiles that make climate, you're going to get a big drain. So having put all the dice on and got all the stuff, you add up the numbers at the bottom right, and you move your token onto that number, except that every board has a drain, so my nutrition starts on -12. Because we keep eating all of this food, we're kind of starting off at -12. So if I manage to get 20 from all my tiles here with the nutrition, it'd be 20 minus 12, would only actually take me up to 8. Now, if you ever end up in the red area, having added the stuff, then you just instantly die. If you end up in the orange area, you have these emergency supplies, which you can use a couple of times to help you, but if you use them too many times, then you die. So you're trying to make sure all your various resources staying above this level in order to survive, to try and get through the missions. Now, a couple of things that are going to happen through the game. After you've sort of got your various resources and checked whether or not you died, something bad happens. Now, these are different scenarios which do vary from game to game. We were playing the meteor shower scenario, and in this case, typically you're going to roll the disaster die. Let's have an example here. So you can see this one says, we've destroyed the food stores, roll the disaster die. So Mark would roll the 8-sided die, and we're looking at the number on here and comparing it with the numbers on the sides here. And this says hit all the tiles in that sector and that sector +1 and +2. So this is going to hit sectors 5, 6 and 7. So 5, 6 and 7, each of the tiles in these rows would get these little grey cubes put on them. And each one of these grey cubes removes the production of that tile. So if this would normally produce, this is upside down, but 9 power, with 3 cubes on here, now it's only producing 6 power. So they kind of make the game harder as you go through, and these cards get worse and worse the further you get through the game as the meteor shower gets worse and worse. Once you've done that, you get to spend capacity. Now, you sort of gain capacity as you gain through the game, and you're using this to buy new tiles. You can see this tile would cost you 5 capacity, but also whenever you get one of these new tiles, which typically gets you better and better, this gives me 40 nutrition, that's huge. The problem is that whenever you get something, it drains another resource. So although I spend 8 capacity on this, but it would also drain power, that's Mark's board, by 2, so it makes it harder for him to sort of accomplish his goals. So that's something else to think about, which is quite important. One final thing I will mention is that the other kind of interaction in the game is that if people desperately need dice, you can put them in the middle here, and then they get to take dice of a matching value, or in this case, a matching value +1. So these docking modules around the outside let you exchange dice, but you're limited. Once these 4 spots have been filled up, you can't exchange dice anymore. So there's a nice bit of discussion. It's like, oh, I really need a 2, 3 or 4 to go on this tile. Can anyone help me? My dice aren't coming out for me or whatever. And so there's quite a bit of nice chit chat, if you like, surrounding trying to get the right things. You're not just doing it by yourself. So if you manage to not die and complete all 3 missions before you get through all this stick, then you win. What do you think?
There's quite a lot to think about this as far as cooperative game goes. To start off with, I like dice manipulation games, and there's a lot of dice manipulation going on in this game. I do like the player powers countries do feel differently. I'm actually going to talk for my own one, but while this being the complex one, it was actually quite fun. The puzzle of rotating my dice to get everything in the optimum place was good. Maybe a little bit solitary at times, but I think that was more my power, because overall there was quite a lot of negotiation almost and discussion going on, because the power, like your increased tier of tiles improvements, are really important. You're going to need them to win the game.
So I should just explain that. When you first start off, you have kind of very basic tiles here, and you need to spend some of your capacity to increase this research track so that you can get access to higher tier tiles, which are the ones that give you lots and lots of resources later on.
Yeah, they're really important, but you know if I take this, somebody else is going to get hit by it. Can they either deal with it, or are they going to buy a tile that will help them, and then they're going to hit somebody else? And there's a certain level of that going around and sharing the dice. It all seemed to gel quite well. Considering there was quite at times quite a mentally taxing puzzle to try and keep us all up and going at the same time, which could be really solitary, it was handled quite well. Past that, the events bit's alright. They kind of, Jonathan pointed out, it's got a name, and it did sort of like one hit food. It did hit food a bit. It's not the most thematic in that way. I'm not certain the theme of being on the ISS comes through in other than the text on things. I'm just moving some form of track up that is one of the systems up. It could be anything. This could be rethemed in many different ways, and it wouldn't really matter. But the actual puzzle itself is really good. The one biggest annoyance is the wheels on these are most of the board, so actually rotating them is quite annoying, because it's easier to turn your whole thing than it is to rotate the wheel with the way of that. But I mean, overall, I'd happily play it again as a cooperative puzzle, because that's fundamentally it is. It's very much a cooperative dice manipulation puzzle.
Rating?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think I'd give it it's somewhere between 7.5 and an 8, I think, off one play.
Okay. I played this quite a few times, and I played it at different player counts, and I really enjoyed the puzzle, as Mark says, the trying to manipulate the dice. That's fun. I found with lower player counts, you take more boards, so there's more to think about, and it becomes more AP prone. There's also less kind of exchanging dice with the middle. With 3 players, which is what we played today, I thought it works really, really well. There's just the right amount of having to exchange dice. Sometimes you want to exchange more dice than you're actually able to because the limit on the number of spots. That's really nice. You're having to think carefully, am I best with this or am I best with that? It's nicely balanced in that the missions feel challenging. It's a not easy game to win, and you definitely get better with practice, but it is doable. It's very easy to mitigate the luck in lots of different ways. So sometimes you will just be unlucky, but most of the time you can work around it and kind of survive. I actually found that harder with fewer players, just because of the way it works out with the number of boards you're having to manipulate sort of by yourself. Because you don't get extra dice with every board. Each player only has 1 set of dice. So that was interesting. The theme, as Mark says, is quite thin. I like the theme, and they've made an effort to integrate the theme, but it could easily be rethemed to something else. But in terms of actually playing the game, I do enjoy it. I would be on a 7.5 out of 10. Alright, thanks for watching. That was Intrepid.